And welcome everyone back to NamLAN 2020, and we've got a big one this evening. This is the Assetto Corsa Finals. My name's Daniel Haynes, I'm in the commentary booth, and I'm joined this evening by Flip de Bruyn. How you doing, Flip?
Very good, Daniel, thanks.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a classic. We're back at Tony Rust. We had the semi-finals last week, and we're into the grand finals, so all the quick guys, they've been lapping, practicing all week. I'm expecting an incredibly close race at this Tony Rust circuit just outside Windhoek. I haven't been here before. Flip, have you been here before? In real life?
Many times.
Many times.
I think it's part of tradition, yeah.
Yeah. So it's a new one for me, but I'm very, very much looking forward to it. You can give me some local track knowledge as we proceed. So the drivers are just starting out on their qualifying session of 15 minutes. And then we've got a 2-race final of 20 laps each. Second race will have a flipped grid of the top 6 finishes from race 1. So that's going to be very, very interesting on whether the fast drivers is one thing to race away from the front, but fighting your way back through the pack in race 2 is quite different. So back to Tony Rust circuit. I said this is new for me, but very much, I've done a few laps, very much enjoyed it already, and the cars that's been selected, these Mini Cooper, John Cooper Works Challenge cars, exceptional choice for this type of circuit to facilitate some very close driving. So I'm just going to bring up the track layout so we can have a chat through it together. So it's quite a simple layout on paper, in fact incredibly simple, only 5 corners and effectively only really 4, but it doesn't tell the full story because it's a very, very quick circuit. From the laps that I've done around here, the start finish straight is incredibly quick, and then a massive braking zone into turn 1, tight hairpin bend at the end of the bottom of a hill as well. So I'm expecting probably a bit of bump and shove round turn 1, but we'll see later this evening. Then we got a 90 left in turn 2 at the top of the hill. Then we go down a hill for a 90 right in turn 3. So they look simple on paper, but the elevation changes can make those 2 corners quite difficult. And then the hardest corner, I think, me personally, I found on track was turn 4. Because getting the right line through there and hitting your apex before you go back on that long drag can be quite difficult. And then the top speed down the main straight is exceptionally quick. So that's what it looks like on paper, but that doesn't really help us to see what it looks like in real life. So we've got one of our drivers this evening, Nick Hodgson. He's done a hot lap commentary for me, and he can show us how a quick lap round here should look like. So let's take it away, Nick.
Alright everybody, welcome to a flying onboard lap around this Tony Rust track in Windhoek, Namibia. A fantastic little track that I've just discovered is in fact real, and today we're on board with the Mini JCW Challenge, of course. Front wheel drive, ABS, and a fantastic little package. Very critical to get a excellent drive off the last corner so we can be flying at over 200 k's an hour across the line, and we're looking for our first braking marker at the 4. Down the gears we go into second, keep it very tight through turn 1, on the power early, and use that torque and that power to really pull yourself out. And on we go up the hill looking for the left-hander. We're going to brake just around the 2 marker. Really get the car turned in nicely. You see, I don't do it perfectly here. I have to fight the understeer. But through 4th gear we go, and down this little hill section looking for the 2 marker again. And you absolutely have to, critical to the lap, get the car turned in and use the camber there. Otherwise you will just throw your lap away. And braking just between the 2 and the 1, we're going to turn for this left-hander. I clipped the curb, lost a little bit of time there as well. Definitely a 1/10 and a half, maybe 2/10 even to have been had on this lap, but off we go, not too bad, and we'll go across the start finish line well over 200 k's an hour as we come up and over the hill, and we're going to be looking for a 1 minute 5.252.
So thanks ever so much, Nick Hodgson, for doing that lap and showing us how a quick lap round here should look like. And he's up into 2nd position in qualifying now, as we're 5 minutes into the 15-minute session. But the person in the lead is Charles Wilkin with provisional pole, but expect the times to still come down a little bit, 1:05.320. So we know Nick's got more time in him because he just showed it to us in his hot lap. And we've seen drivers go quicker than that as well. So maybe a bit of track progression as we continue on, but we'll pop through a few of our drivers. You can see from the performance delta in the middle of your screens whether they're up on their delta. So as we see, Charles Wilkin, our leader, is actually coming up to finish his lap, and he is very marginally up on his delta, so he will improve that pole lap, and he has to got into the 105.2s. So I'm quite familiar with Charles Wilkin and Nick Hodgson and a few other drivers from the South African scene, but maybe Flip, you can name out a few of the local boys that we can watch out for this evening?
So, yeah, there's quite a few of them that I know race in real life, but from this lineup, the only one that's really ever participated in NamLAN is Louis van der Merwe. He's currently sitting third here, and Sarel Boshoff, number 12. In NamLAN, the previous ones that were physical events, they were usually the top guys, along with Corneille Kotze. Unfortunately, he can't be here tonight. He was in the preliminaries, but he's not here tonight. But those are the guys that I do know are very quick by NamLAN standards. And then, of course, you've got some guys here that are actually real-life races that I know are fast on a real track. But we'll have to see. And those are the guys like Mr. Tony Rust and Melvin. So we'll have to see how they do tonight. I saw them, they're quite quick last weekend, but now with the two grids merged, I have no idea what's going to happen here.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting, and obviously when you're fighting so closely as well, that's also going to shake it up a little bit. It's very different to put a qualifying lap into actually a racecraft during a very frantic 20-lap race. So when they're following closely together, it's going to be interesting to see who copes with that pressure. I suspect that's where a real-life driver has quite a significant advantage, but some of these sim drivers, they've got thousands of hours under their belt, so they've got pretty good at it as well. Riding on board with Jack Boter now, he is in 4th position, and he's just going to come over the finish line, and he's improving slightly on his time. Not sure whether it might be enough to actually go up into 3rd spot. As we see him cross the line, it's not. He stays in 4th place, does Jack Boter.
The interesting discussion we had last weekend, as well as a discussion we had with Mr. Michael Rust, which is also currently in this race, was the difference between real races and sim races. And one of the biggest things they found so far, from the experience of these guys, is that when you compare the two, sim races and real races, sim races tend to be a little bit more careless. Because a lot of the actual drivers, they've got the thing in the back of their mind that if I damage this, it's going to come out of my wallet. So yeah. I think that goes a little bit in the favor of the sim races, where, they're used to that reset button. They're used to pushing, the limits. They'll find it quicker because they're used to that button. But I must say, what I really loved about the real races coming into this is a lot of the sim races started learning, in my experience out of the tournaments that we've been having here, is they're actually teaching the gamers discipline. And the amount of accidents and bumps, and, almost, let's say, call it dirty racing that's been going on, really went down a lot since we had these actual races also started taking part here.
Yeah, and with, they say with a real-life driver, with the fear factor, you got to teach someone to keep your foot on the throttle. In a sim racer, you got to teach them to use the brake. That's the two differences between them, because they're very good at keeping their foot on the throttle, but sometimes that's not always the quickest way. Especially here, where I think people will start just encroaching on that braking zone into turn 1 and just pushing those brake markers more and more. And when you're in the draft of a car in front as well, trying to read that, you actually want to be braking a little bit earlier. So I'm really interested into T1, what happens when people are really close up behind, whether they can get on the brakes quick enough. But we don't want to see too much bumping and shoving, but I'm no doubt in these very tightly matched cars, sort of quite slow pace, we will see some of it, I'm sure. So to remind ourselves, we see Charles Wilkins has lost his provisional pole, but Adrian Nell is up into 1st place with a 105.272. Look how close it is between those two drivers. 2 100ths of a second splits pole position, and we still got 5 minutes 40 seconds to go with a little bit of overtime. So there's plenty of time. The track is progressing a little bit. Obviously grip improving slightly. I think the server settings were set that way, so we will expect times to come down as qualifying session sort of comes to a close. Looking down the grid, who else can we see? Peter Geldnes, I'm very familiar with him. He can show some speed when he needs to, but he's down in 8th place at the moment. Warwick Stewart in 11th place. Craig Hunter in 15th, just seeing who's improving on their delta. At the moment, doesn't appear to be the case with Craig Hunter. Let's pop back on to Brett Krewkamp, who has recently been doing some races in a series that I commentate on, and he had great speed on Monday night in a race. So we'll see how he gets on in a different car in this Mini Cooper. Great little car, this Mini Cooper, actually built in my hometown of Oxford. Been to the factory many times, driven past it. It used to be the old Rover factory, but when BMW purchased Rover, eventually it was converted into the new Mini factory, and all Minis are produced there. Massive, massive factory in Oxford.
No, I've seen only pictures of it, but if I can someday, I would like to see that place in person.
Yeah, you go around, you get pretty used to seeing Minis living around Oxford, let me tell you that. They drive around everywhere. I think anyone that works there seems to get them cheap, so it's the city of the Minis. Mini Coopers everywhere. Not these John Cooper Works challenge cars, though. These have got a little bit more poke about them. So only 4 minutes. Really... Sorry, carry on.
No, I said I just wanted to say I really like the Mini. One thing that we found, you know, a lot of these guys, you just spoke about the other races that these guys are coming from, and one thing I like about the Mini that the racers themselves and the people in this race also commented on was how, you know, the performance. If you take a car and you can't tune it because the settings are locked for these guys. So everyone is on the same performance, and they say it makes for a really unique racing experience, because, you know, and normally in races you've got some cars that you know, they perform better around turns, others are better on the straight, so that's where the different cars have an edge. But here, with the same car, where everyone's driving exactly the same setup, it's really a contest of skill, isn't it?
For sure, yeah. Fixed setup's actually quite unusual in Assetto Corsa league racing. There is a definite skill in setting up the car to your driving style, but here they have to adapt to the car because they can't alter anything. Presumably they can adjust brake bias and tyre pressure, and that'll probably be about it. Everything else will be fixed. So yeah, we're seeing pure driving skill here, but still incredibly tight between the top 3 drivers. Less than a tenth separates pole position from third. Nick Hodgson is going to improve very slightly, but keeps in 3rd place. So they're going to be frantically trying to make sure they're on track for the last minute or so with track progression and grip improving. So I'm expecting a few more changes to occur. But Adrian Nell is going to be pretty happy with his performance so far with 105.272. We saw that was roughly the sort of pace that Nick Hodgson was doing in his hot lap video. But we've seen lower than that, 105.1s just in the practice session before this race started. But maybe a little bit of a pressure. We've got a final situation. We've also got prize money at hand. So maybe, Flip, you can take us through what the winners and losers get here in this AC final of NamLAN.
Yeah, so the grand prize of... let's actually start from the bottom. So 3rd place is going to get a 2,000 Namibian dollar prize. 2nd place is 3,000 Namibian dollar prize, and the 1st place gets a whopping 6,000 Namibian dollars.
Wow, that's going to concentrate the mind a little bit, I think, isn't it? More than just a normal race at a weekend. You've got 6,000 Namibian dollars up for grab for winning this one.
Yeah, that's if that's not motivation, then I don't know what is.
But like I said at the start of the stream, what's really going to be interesting is that 2nd race. So the winner of race 1 does not necessarily walk away with this, because he'll be starting from 6th position in race 2 and starting mid-pack when you've maybe been on pole position in race 1. Be very difficult. So obviously we're looking for an average result over the 2 races of who will actually go away with that prize money. Obviously a win in race 1 is going to get you a long way there. But yeah, 25 points up for grab for the winner, 22 points for 2nd place, and 20 points for 3rd, and progressively goes down the grid in sort of 2-point increments. So if you finish 1st but you have a bit of a nightmare in 2nd, you could throw it all away.
Yeah. No, if especially on that first turn, because that's what happened, last weekend, especially with some of these guys that had to start mid, at sixth place, that was first, is that first turn really, threw some people off by a lot. They struggled to get back on, and I think one or two of them actually dropped down to, the back, the complete back of the pack, because that first turn is not very forgiving. It's if you go off there, you've got problems.
Yeah, for sure. And while you were chatting, we had Charles Wilkin take back his provisional pole position, and we're just going across the death now, so they can complete their laps that they're currently on. Charles Wilkin is our provisional pole sitter with a 105.157. Got into the point ones. So we're looking at specifically Nick Hodgson, Adrian Nell. Nell doesn't look to be out on a hot lap, so Nick Hodgson is out there. He's not currently improving, but he's right on his delta. Got a car that's distracting him across the circuit now, but he didn't seem to lose pace and had a great exit out of turn 3. Now, unfortunately, a bit of commentator's curse there for Nick Hodgson, because he's bailed out of it. Took a bit too much of the road and went onto the sand. So, who have we got left on circuit? I don't think anyone is still on a flyer, where Louis van der Merwe now is coming up to the line, but he's not going to improve. Looks like we've got our race 1 grid sorted. It will be Charles Wilkins starting from pole position, Adrian Nell 2nd place, Nick Hodgson 3rd place, Jack Bota 4th position, Louis van der Merwe 5th, Warwick Stewart 6th, Brett Krewkamp 7th. Who else have we got? Peter Grobler 8th, Peter Geldnes 9th, and Jay de Villiers will round out the top 10. So while the guys collect their thoughts, we're going to take a short break before we line up for race 1. Don't go anywhere. And we're back here at Tony Rust, just waiting for the cars to form on the grid for race 1 as we completed the qualifying session. And yeah, I think there'll be a slight cool down onto on the grid as well. Here we go. So the guys are just forming up on the grid. We got a 60-second cooldown. I'm just going to take the performance delta off, so we don't need that anymore. And we'll be keeping a keen eye on our leaders in Charles Wilkin, starting from pole position. There should be Adrian Nell, who's not gone onto the grid yet, but is probably just making some last-minute changes. All he can be doing is tyre pressures. There's nothing else he can change in settings, so he should be working his way to the grid shortly. And the lights will come on with 10 seconds to go. This first corner is going to be absolutely vital for this. Who's going to come out as winner of NamLAN 2020 Assetto Corsa here at Tony Rust. Lights come up onto the screen. Here they come. And it's lights out and away we go. Carl Wilkins got a good start. Adrian Nell didn't seem to gain anything on Carl Wilkins. Carl's obviously going to be covering the inside line as we go into turn 1. Massive braking zone. So will Charles Wilkin manage to complete it without any incident? He has indeed. Adrian Nell slotted into 2nd place. Nick Hodgson's had a clean start as well. Very clean from these drivers. Great driving all round throughout the grid. No incident whatsoever into turn 1. Can't often say that. Adrian Nell just looking up the inside of Charles Wilkin as we get into the braking zone of turn 2. Bit of a tap there, but Charles Wilkin managed to collect it. Didn't lose any time. Wilkins, in fact, gained some of that. Nell's just dropped back slightly into the clutches of Hodgson as they come into turn 3. Almost slightly off the too much apex from Hodgson there. Coming to the difficult turn 4, and this could be a A good opening lap for Wilkins, just what he'd want from pole position. Manages to just hold on to that place, but Nell's not going anywhere. Bit of action further back. We'll just check in further back. Maybe Brett Krewkamp. Yes, we got Krewkamp, Botha and Louis van der Merwe all incredibly close on track. In fact, we got Van der Merwe is right side by side with Jacques Botha now. It's going to be very interesting into T1, into the braking zone. Looks like we got Botha covering the inside. And Louis van der Merwe is actually gained the spot. He's up into 4th place. Botha's dropped back into 5th position. Very clean driving from those two. Quite impressive, to be honest. We've got Botha trying to fight his way back. Now, just check back in on the leaders. Wilkins is still in our lead, but we've got Nell not sort of being dropped by any stretch of the imagination. Only 3/10. Looking for any mistake whatsoever from Wilkins. Wilkins has got a clean track in front of him, so he needs to just concentrate on that and not the rear view mirror. But it's good driving throughout the field, Flip, don't you think?
Yeah, no, this is a lot cleaner than what we had last weekend. But looking specifically at this mid-pack, you know, you just called it Brett Krewkamp, you know, Botha, Van der Merwe, they're really just sticking to each other.
Yeah, Botha's actually got his place back, and Van der Merwe slotted up behind him in the draft of the final straight, and they're going to come into the T1 side by side for the second lap running, these two drivers. So riding back on board with Botha and Louis van der Merwe, they are side by side into this corner. And
See, this is the type of action we had. You know, every turn almost you have your competitor overtaking, taking the inside lanes. It was really competitive action. Basically the same we're seeing right now, but this was lap after lap after lap, 20 laps of this. So I'm wondering if we're going to see a repeat of that tonight.
I think we certainly are between Botha and Louis van der Merwe. Those guys are using the draft exceptionally well, certainly acting favourably up that straight, the draft, and whoever's behind can take the inside line into turn 1. It seems to be the easy passing opportunity. Everywhere else is very tight through the field. We'll just check back on the mid-pack. We're riding on board now with Warwick Stewart. And we've got a car turn round back there. Who is it? I'm not 100% sure with the skin. Michael Rust, I think, is spun round. Yes. So he's going to be dropped right to the back of the field. Bit unfortunate for Rust. I think we've got both.
When he started spinning out.
Yeah. That's the first incident or spin we've seen so far. Great driving throughout the field. Still super close between Wilkins and Nell. In fact, so close they're side by side as we ride on board with Wilkins. He's covering the inside line. He's driving defensive already. He's going to make Nell go the long way round. In the meantime, Hodgson's allowed to catch up to these top two. So we've got a podium places all very close, within 3/10 of each other. Nell's just looking up the inside of Wilkins here. Looks like Wilkins went very wide, but he will have the inside line as turn 4. You don't want to compromise your exit in any way through turn 4, though, to see how important that back straight is. Sorry, the main straight. If you don't get a clean exit, you'll just be a sitting duck into turn 1 braking zone. But Wilkins did manage to collect himself. Very nervous lap there from Charles Wilkin. He's our leader, but only just. Nell slots back into second place, and Hodgson's just waiting for anything to happen between these two drivers so he can capitalise on a mistake. 4 laps in. We're going into lap 5 of a 20-lap sprint race. It's going to be quick. Blink and you'll miss it. We'll jump a little bit further back to see what's going on, and further back we got Warwick Stewart, Peter Geldnes. We've got 2 drivers behind him in Grobler and Jay de Villiers. These guys are coming into turn 3, and looks like Grobler has got the place, but will de Villiers get the cutback? Great to see minis running side by side so closely, but the respect from the drivers giving room and space as well. They've certainly been practicing hard for this event. We will only have provisional results issued at the end of this race, because we will be looking back at racing incidents. Obviously, with prize money involved, you have to win it cleanly, and the final results will be posted tomorrow. That's very important just to note.
So Daniel, just because we've got some new people watching this that's not familiar to sim racing, maybe you can explain to us. Earlier you said about defensive racing, you know. Now, the racers out there would know it's when you sort of drive in a way that prevents people behind you from coming past, right? But in certain instances, that can affect your times, meaning you have to go a bit slow because you're taking racing lines. But how much of your time can that defensive driving really, take off, or how much longer does it take?
Yeah, the interesting thing with sim racing in general is that it does have transferable skills to real life racing. So every one of these drivers, I imagine, will have a proper steering wheel setup at home, and you can get your setup incredibly realistic. And the simulators also are very realistic. So if you're covering the inside line and that is not the driving line, you are going to compromise your exit out of that corner, and that's going to significantly affect you. It can affect you less or more depending on what's coming up. But here, if you compromise your exit in turn 4 up this incredibly long straight, you could lose several tenths before you get into the braking zone of turn 1. So it could be a situation where you're if you make a mistake, better letting the car pass and then getting tucked in behind him on that straight, and you'll probably have an opportunity to regain that place into the turn 1 braking zone. Because this simulator does take into effect that you're drafting car behind. You will gain time down that straight following. It is more difficult to be in front. So if you imagine Formula 1 racing, maybe you watched the qualifying earlier this afternoon, it's effectively exactly the same. Going to be a little bit less so in these non-aeroed cars in the John Cooper Works Challenge, but certainly aero has a massive effect both in sim racing as well as real life, obviously.
So yeah, no, it's interesting, all these, as you learn more about racing, because I don't think the real life racing and sim racing is so much different. But you see now concepts like this, like defensive driving, how you need to overtake, properly. I don't mean like the normal game way of trying to knock your opponent off the track, but actually after doing it in an actual racing sense. I think there's a lot of tricks, and what you said earlier, I think is very true, where there's transferable skills, especially in the overtaking department. When there's a prize money, you can't just start playing bumper cars with the guy next to you to get ahead.
Yeah, no. If you're not side by side, or at least have part of your vehicle side by side into the braking zone of a corner, you are fully expected to bail out of that pass, just as you would in real life. And as we ride on board with Stuart and Grobler having a real battle here, they switched places 3 times in the last 4 corners. But yeah, if you can defend the place, you can pick your line, you can defend your spot, but you certainly can't block a car as they're trying to pass. And I think the respect from any sim racer that is at this level will have that in their driving ability. So once a car is side by side, you can't suddenly run him off the road. You accept the fact that you made a mistake, the place is gone, and you regroup and try and gain it back later. And we're seeing that this evening.
Yeah, no, definitely. But tell me something I'm curious about that I quite haven't grasped yet. At what point in time? Because see, obviously, if a guy is faster than you, now just ignoring the draft and so on. Because if you're ahead of a guy and he starts catching up slowly, at some point that will mean the guy is faster than you because he caught up to you. So at what point are you expected to stop trying to sort of block or stop the guy and let him pass?
Yeah, see, there's not really, you don't actively block. If anyone's maybe just familiar with Formula 1 but not in the sim racing scene, you'll see how difficult it is to pass another car if the car in front is keeping the racing line. Effectively, the racing line is the shortest way round a circuit. So if you've got to pass off that line, that means you're actually travelling further distance in the car in front, and therefore it's going to massively slow you down. So often you have to be significantly quicker to make a pass, or you're waiting for a mistake from the driver in front where he either misses an apex, runs a bit wide, or snatches a brake, something along those lines. So yeah, if you're in an endurance race, you don't drive defensively at all when you've got 5 hours remaining. It's just it's not worth it. You all lose time. But if you've got two laps left in a race, the guy could be a second quicker than you. It doesn't matter. You hold the racing line as much as you possibly can, and you can still end up out ahead. So it is very strategic in that way, and obviously the driver trying to make a pass just has to monitor, maybe if he follows. So we've got Nell in this situation now, riding on board with Nell, and he's following Wilkins. he's been doing so for quite a few laps, he'll start to get familiar with where Wilkins is strong and maybe where he's a little bit weaker, and he can possibly capitalize on the next lap. So he'll just be monitoring that, and you start to familiarize yourself with the opponent, and then before you know it, yeah, if they make a mistake and they do something different from what they did in the previous 5-6 laps, for example, then you know when to poach. And yeah, Nell will be in that position right now. He's close enough that any mistake from Wilkins, only half a second up the road, Nell's going to be there to poach. We've got 9 laps remaining, only halfway through race 1. It's certainly not over, and we're going to see a different side of these two drivers when they're starting midfield. So yeah, race 2 going to be super interesting. I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, true. And just taking on something, you know, because this is a simulator, one thing that really started affecting people here from roughly lap 15 was the tire wear. Because apparently I think they said the front left wheel started going really, really quickly. You know, and by lap 15, some people completely had to change their brake spots and all of these types of things. And that's just, you know, owing to another fact of, you know, they're driving in a simulator.
Yeah, so it might look like Forza Motorsport or Gran Turismo, but actually this is quite significantly more comprehensive in its suspension work, its tyre model. So yeah, for sure, these cars they'll have live tyre data on them. So as they go through and they're pushing more and more, if you brake lock too much, you're going to start wearing out your tyres. It certainly can become a factor, and times will start slowing down towards the end of this race. And yeah, if someone's looked after their tyres well for the first sort of 10-15 laps, that could be an opportunity. Perhaps if Nell is sat behind Wilkins, can't find a pass, but just thinks, well, I'll just keep as close as I possibly can, but look after the car. Yeah, it might pay dividends towards the end of the race. But at the moment, it does look like Wilkins has possibly got Nell covered. Starting to, that gap just stretching very marginally. It's certainly not comfortable by any stretch of the imagination, but it's enough for Wilkins just to feel confident. And the longer you go in front without the car passing behind, you start to just focus ahead of yourself, keep less of an eye in those rear view mirrors, and concentrate on just punching in some qualifying laps. I would say that Charles Wilkins just did the fastest lap of the race with a 1:05.198, so that's qualifying almost pole position time there from Charles Wilkins again in the race on lap 13.
Now I saw in you know, in the previous races leading up to this one, Charles is the type of guy, if he does get into this first place position, I think it's very difficult for someone to catch up to him. But I mean, him and Adrian Nel were in separate races, you know, different groups last weekend. So this weekend, having them together in the finals is really proving to give us a fight up front, because last week it just seemed like there wasn't quite somebody that could catch Charles just yet there.
Yeah, interesting, isn't it? So when you put the two winners from the heats and the semi-finals together, how closely they are still matched here in the final. We're sort of nearly 2/3 into this race, and 0.6 seconds separates our leaders. And they are toing and froing. Nell's just clawed a bit of the delta back there. There's quite a bit of a gap back to Nick Hodgson and Jacques Bota, two very quick drivers I know very well. I'm a little bit surprised at that, but Wilkins and Nell have obviously put the time in with this track and car combination. Wilkins has obviously benefits from quite a substantial real-world driving career, and also a lot of experience in the simulator as well. Quite a few different simulators. I'm very familiar with Wilkins in several different. He's pretty good in Dirt Rally 2 and Assetto Corsa Competizione. He's done some of that as well. And I think he recently won a Rally Championship esports event earlier in the year as well, quite a substantial one, so for Toyota. So Wilkins has certainly got the pedigree behind him to do well this evening, and if he gets a win in lap 1, he'll be the one to watch in race 2. Sorry, how he progresses from 6th place on the grid, if that is the way it finishes.
Yeah, no, he got another one under his belt. He was actually the first guy to win an online NamLAN Assetto race, because he was the first one over that finish line in the first ever race last weekend.
Right.
So
okay.
if he does win today, he'll also have another achievement of being the first guy to win a NamLAN. But at this point, we don't know exactly who that's going to be yet. Like you said, normally race 2 is a very different kind of beast for these guys. that have to battle it up to try and get that podium position back.
Yeah, so possibly we saw what we were talking about earlier with the tyres just warming up, because most of the front 5 drivers came through that lap 0.2 slower than they were before. Wilkins did a 105.4. So times are slowing down a little bit.
Yeah, no, as what we understand, like I said, it's the front left tire, but you can see with all the turns here, it's not surprising. Very short track, a lot of turns, and
you'd expect actually would be the front right as you lean on it with all of these left-handers.
Yeah, that's what we also thought, surprisingly.
But I did do a few laps just to familiarise myself with the track, and the elevation changes in virtual reality is quite a big elevation change here. It looks slightly flatter on screen, but it does make it a lot more interesting than the track layout would lead you to believe. But all the hill climb and the sort of big bumps straight through the middle of the entire circuit basically does lend itself to need a little bit more skill to negotiate some of these braking zones when you're also going downhill as well and gaining speed quite quickly.
Yeah, I know. Melvin told us that I see also he said it in the chat again. It's the wheel spin, I think, that eats the wheels. But just an interesting fact: this track is normally driven the other way around, but because of how difficult that is, they decided to keep it this way around, eh?
Well, I heard that they actually designed it this way round, and all the track layouts that I got had it going in a clockwise formation instead of anti-clockwise, and they changed it last year officially, so a local told me. So now I assume all races, turn 1 that we have is actually turn 1. They had to make some changes to the track to get FIA approval to have it this way. I think it was deemed too dangerous when the track was originally. It's such a heavy braking zone. I can understand why they would come to that conclusion. But we're just seeing Nell creep up to Wilkins again. So we got 3 laps remaining in this race, but the gap's closed slightly from Wilkins to Nell. Within half a second, in the background we're seeing quite a substantial gap between Hodgson and Botha. So look like Nick Hodgson's having quite a lonely race, but at the moment he might not be too upset with a podium finish for sure. He'll be starting ahead of his rival. So we got someone off track there, but I can't quite see who that was, doing a bit of...
That was Yunel, that's currently there. Unfortunately, she went off. I was actually looking... forward to see how Wilkin and Arjan was going to try and get past her, but it was Miss van Schalkwyk that went off there.
So we got 2 laps remaining here in race 1 at Tony Rust in NamLAN 2020, and it looks like Wilkins is gonna. He's led from the front right from the start. He had quite a lot of heavy pressure from Nell for a few laps in the first third of this race. Managed to shake Nell off. And Wilkins is now running away with it. He's got 2 laps to finish, though. I think he'll be pretty confident after you've completed 18 laps from the front. You know you've just got to continue doing what you're doing. Unless he's fighting with any major issues with tyre temperatures, then I'll be amazed if we see a change here. Hodgson is quite comfortably in 3rd spot, completely on his own. Jack Botha in 4th position. Peter Geldnes has worked his way up into 5th place. Always good in a race is Peter Geldnes, and he's having a bit of a crack here as well, up into 5th place. Warwick Stewart is up into 6th position. Grobler in 7th. We saw Stewart and Grobler fighting it out earlier, but they've settled down, and gaps just starting to form now throughout the field. In fact, Stewart's just done his fastest lap of the race with a 105.5, so he's enjoying this concluding part. Charles Bossoff is in 8th place. Tommy Leary in 9th, and Jay de Villiers rounds out the top 10. We're just going to clock back in with our leaders in Wilkins and Nell as they come round, where are we? Turn 3, coming up to turn 4 before they commence their final lap of the race. And then I'm going to get Flip in the background, obviously frantically writing the point situation down, because he's going to have to calculate as we get through race 2 where everybody stands. Not an easy task. So we're our leaders, and look at Nell. Managed to get the gap down to 2/10 behind Wilkins. It's not all over yet, guys. Final lap of the race just starting now. Wilkins just did a 105.6. Nell did a 105.3. 3/10 quicker than Wilkins on that lap. So maybe Wilkins is struggling a touch with the tyres as we go on to the final lap of the race. Nell's as close as he's been all race. 2/10 back. It's going to be a photo finish between these two drivers. Within 2/10 now as they come around turn 3. Sorry, turn 2, coming up to turn 3 at the bottom of the dip here. You see Wilkins just favouring that inside line. Now is bumper to bumper with Wilkins now. How close can you be? Leaving it to the death is Wilkins. Turn 4, he's really covering the inside line. This could massively compromise his exit here, and Nell can get a good run. Will there be enough time for a drag finish? I don't think so. Wilkins held it. Look how close Nell is. Could be side by side here as we come across the line. What a finish here in race 1 at Tony Rust. These cars are right side by side. Who's going to get it? I'm not sure. Wilkins got it by a hair. Wow.
That is
how
a
close.
finish. You called it.
He compromised his exit, did Charles Wilkin, and he almost paid. If there was one more lap to go, now had it into turn 1. 100% had it into turn 1, but the start-finish line is halfway along that straight and not at the bottom. So that was a narrow victory by Charles Wilkin. Brilliant driving from Adrian now. But yeah, I've got him on I've got one time in screen with Nal in first place, and I've got the official one on screen with him in second. So I'm assuming that is the case. I couldn't get much closer than that. It's one of the closest finishes I've seen in sim racing commentary so far. Nick Hodgson did well.
That was a very close start.
Super close.
But now, as you have said, when it comes to race 2, that is where we will need to see the real driver, the real skills come out.
100%. Okay, we're going to take a short break and we'll be back for race 2. I don't think anyone's going anywhere after that one. We'll see you soon. Okay, we're back. Sure, we gathered our thoughts, take a breath. Maybe whilst the cars, we've still got a bit of time before they line up for race 2, you can just run us through our sponsors, please, Flip, because we got them to thank for such an epic venue and yeah, a great sort of crowd and race and something for these guys to really fight for.
Yeah, no, so our main sponsor that made this event possible is LogitechG, so big shout out and a big thanks to them. Really sticking with us. This is the second year they've been with us, and it's a very good chance that they'll be here next year as well. Right after that, we've got Vander Designs and Future CC, a little bit more on the technical side and planning and so on. And then, of course, we have to give a shout out to SRA for the wonderful service, administrative stuff, helping us here, and also Evolve IT for sponsoring this track. We need to thank Groblar. He's the one that made this track, and it wasn't too long ago that they made this, but still, thank you to everyone of those people and everybody working behind the scenes. There's too many names to name, but thank you to all of them.
Yeah, well done, everyone. So we've got 20 seconds until race 2, and we've got Warwick Stewart starting from pole. So he finished 6th in race 1. So with the flip grid that we have for race 2, he will be starting from pole position. So can Warwick line it up into turn 1? And we'll keep a keen eye on Charles Wilkin and Nell, and they're in 6th and 5th place. So lights out, and away we go for race 2. We got Stewart up on the inside. We've got someone also starting from pit lane, it seemed. So I'm not quite sure what that one was all about. And on my screen, we got Peter Geldenez is just nudging ahead from Stewart. And it looks like Geldenez might leave the turn 1. Oh, I don't know. They're side by side as Stewart and Geldenez. And they'll take this fight on to turn 2. They come up the hill for the 90-degree left-hander. And here we go into turn 2. Geldenez has got it, so he's our leader. Stewart in second place. Botha finds himself in third. Hodgson fourth. Wilkins is already up into 5th place. Nell back into 7th. So Nell had a bit of a nightmare start, and that's not what he wanted, because he's got Wilkins who's going to be point leader ahead of him in 5th place. So Geldenez, he's quick from on his own, is Peter Geldenez, so don't expect guys to track him down as quickly as you may think. I can see Peter Geldenez running away with this one as well when he's got clear track ahead of him. Warwick Stewart in second place. Botha also very, very quick driver. Not going to be an easy one to pass. Nick Hodgson, not going to be an easy one to pass. We got Charles Wilkins, our leader, our winner from race 1, back in 5th position. But those places ahead of him are not going to be just easy to take away. Nell's got back into 6th place. So Nell, unfortunately, just dropped a place from Wilkins, but still plenty of time to go. 18 laps. Going to be really interesting to work out the point standing. We're going back to Stewart and Botha. Looks like Botha's up on the inside and has poached that place from Stewart. So Jack Botha moves up into 2nd position in this race, in race 2. Side by side is Nick Hodgson and Wilkins as well. Looks like Wilkins managed to make that pass made as well. So Wilkins is carving his way through the field here, doing exactly what he needs to do. He's up into 4th position already. Next on this,
had a bit of an accident at the back.
Is it? Who have we missed at the back?
No, I think we had a bit of a disconnect here. Michael Rust, Craig, and Louis van der Merwe, all 3 were off the track there at one point. Not sure what happened. Just saw a lot of dust. People put besides the track. We got
Nell just posted the fastest lap of this race so far. So Nell's desperate to try and catch Wilkins up. Got Hodgson. Wilkins has managed to get past Hodgson. That's a good pass to make, because Hodgson's not an easy pass, I can tell you that much for sure. I've raced on track with him many times before. So Wilkins up into 4th position. He's looking at Stewart. Hodgson's not going anywhere though. He's keeping an eye on the back of Charles Wilkins' Mini Cooper here. Very, very close to him. And who have we got? Nell behind. Nell is managed to catch up with Hodgson as they come through turn 4. We saw how good Nell was out of the final corner, as it almost was a significant win, but couldn't get much closer finish than race 1. See whether we get that closer finish here in race 2. Where's our leader? Leader is half a second clear, and Peter Geldenez. Jack Botha is trying to track him down. Was 2/10 quicker on the lap was Botha. Stewart was 2/10 slower. Wilkins is 1.6 seconds back. So Botha, I imagine, is going to start putting a bit of pressure on Peter Geldenez at that sort of pace. Another couple of laps. Geldenez just needs to settle down a little bit, concentrate on his entrance in Apex. Carry as much speed as you possibly can. It's all about carrying speed in these Mini Coopers. Slower the car, almost the harder it is to get that perfect lap. Because the momentum is so important, especially through this final sort of turn 4-5 section. Every extra kilometre an hour you carry through this corner magnifies itself by the time you get into the braking zone of turn 1. This is what we mean about exit speed. More important than entrance speed. Slow in, fast out, as they say. You can't have both, unfortunately. And we have got Botha has clawed back another 3/10 in that lap. So Peter Geldenez is going to be under substantial pressure here at the front, and Stewart's looking up the inside as well. These 3 drivers, a bit of a train forming here behind Peter Geldenez. Got 5 cars very, very close together, all within a second and a half. Nell's not managed to get past Hodgson yet, but as I say that, just having a look up the inside as they come up to turn 2. It's vital for Nell, if he wants to win this final, is to try and gain places and get onto the back of Wilkins as quickly as possible. He's going to be a difficult man to track down Nell was trying to track him down for the entire race of race 1. He's given himself all to do here in race 2 now. Oh, both drivers off there in Nell and Hodgson. Made a bit of a mess. This is going to cause a bit of an issue. They've managed to regain on track and not gain places, but they've lost a huge amount of time. So Nell's dropped right back, and Hodgson as well. They've rejoined the track in the positions that they were in, but the amount of time they've lost to our leaders, that's not going to be clawed back anytime soon. So who have we got? Jay De Villiers is looking up the inside. No, he's not. He is still behind now. Nell's managed to get past Hodgson, but then they're coming round turn 1 together. We'll just stick with these drivers just for a little bit longer, because the gaps at front are sort of spreading out a little bit. We will be cutting in for our leaders at some point. As I say that, Charles Wilkins has just managed to get past Stewart. I think Warwick Stewart must have made a mistake, because the gap was there and then just suddenly disappeared, and those two drivers switched places. Nell's also got ahead of Hodgson, but is now 6.8 seconds back from our leaders. So that's going to probably give Nell a lot of work to do. Let's go back to the front, as there's 1/10 between Peter Geldnes and Jack Boter. Jack Boter's looking up the inside, desperate to cover that inside line as they come into the braking zone. Peter Geldnes doesn't want to have him. He's pushing him as narrow as you possibly can. But I think Boter's got the inside line as they go into the braking zone. They'll be braking around the number 4 marker. Geldnes went deep there. Boter braked on his line. These two Mini Coopers side by side again as they come up into turn 2. Boter's just dropped back behind Geldnes. Certainly feeling the pressure as Peter Geldnes as they come through turn 2. Maybe Boter will just wait and bide his time for that final straight. We're only on lap 7 of this race. Plenty of time and opportunities ahead. Rather take your time. We got Wilkins Stewart right up the back of Wilkins, actually. I thought it was the other way around, but it's not the case whatsoever. In fact, we've got Stewart looking at the inside, but that's going to compromise turn 4 for him. So we're going to expect to see Wilkins just manage to stretch. This is what I mean about biding your time. Don't want to be trying to lunge up the inside of turn 4, because it's just never going to work. You end up losing more time than you gain, and that's exactly what's happened, is Wilkins stretches away from Warwick Stewart on the straight. So Peter Geldnes is still our leader here in race 2. 8 laps in already. Only 12 laps left of this final. Been very exciting already. And who's going to win this could be anybody's game. Peter Geldnes had a good lap there, because he's managed to stretch 3/10 over Jack Boter. But he has a terrible corner as I say that, and the gap's right back to 1/10 again. I think Jack Boter is just going to hold off and wait for that start-finish straight. Really concentrate on a good entry into turn 4, and then taking as much momentum as he can. He does go wide as we got Geldnes covering that inside line. He's going to be under pressure now on this straight, because he was a bit too defensive on that final corner. Jack Boter definitely got the better exit. Right in the draft of Geldnes is Jack Boter as they come up to the finish line. We've got Geldnes incredibly defensive driving, covering that inside line. He wants to be on that inside in turn 1. So important. Boter's trying to go around the outside. He had no other else to go. Trying to do it on the cutback into turn 2, because Geldnes has not given him any space up the inside. These cars are super close together, Boter and Geldnes. Fighting for the win here in race 2. 9 laps in, 11 to go. Wilkins is not a million miles away, only half a second back. He'll be enjoying watching these two cars scrap together. And he is. He's looking up the inside already of Boter. Could Wilkins make the pass here? Don't think so. He's got back into 3rd place. Super close between these 3 cars. Four cars, all within fighting distance of the win for this race. Geldnes, Boter, Wilkins, Stewart in 4th place, not far back either. Then we got a bit of a gap back to Nell, who's been clawing back that deficit where the off track with Hodgson earlier. Has managed to get a couple of seconds back with only 10 laps remaining. it's going to be a difficult one. Geldnes is making that Mini Cooper as wide as a truck into turn 1, has to be said. Not easy at all for Botha to pass. I feel like if he's going to pass, it's going to be a long way round. Wilkins is just dropped back a little bit. I think he's prepared just to wait. Maybe he knows the results. I'm sure Flip's frantically trying to work out who the final tally from race 1. So we can have a provisional results at the end of this if race 2. But as far as I've got it, Wilkins, our winner, in 3rd place would be enough for him. Doesn't need to take any risks, does Charles Wilkin. There's no glory in winning both races if you're going to win on points anyway. Wants to make sure he keeps it clean. Peter Geldnes has settled down now. In fact, our top 2 drivers set their fastest laps of the race, 105.6 and 105.5 from the front 2. Still no way past for Jack Botha in 2nd place here. Peter Geldnes is keeping it very clean. Haven't seen any major mistakes from him at all. Can he hold out under this pressure for 9 more laps though? It's a tall order. These 2 drivers race against each other regularly though, so they'll be quite familiar with each other's driving. Mind Peter Geldnes just covers that inside line on turn 4 a lot more than Jack Botha. Botha got an excellent line though. Geldnes has gone wide. Botha's going to be up the inside. I think this is going to be enough for Botha to get the pass done. He's already ahead before we even get to the start-finish line, is Jack Botha. Geldnes is trying to drag back now. Botha's going to be covering that inside. And it's Jack Botha's going to have the inside line into turn 1 for the first time. Geldnes gone a little bit wide there. Wilkins is wading behind in 3rd place. So we have a position change between Botha and Geldnes. Not quite fully cemented yet though, because they come up to turn 2 almost side by side still. Botha covering the inside line though.
Charles coming into the mix as well.
Yeah, he's not far behind. In fact, he's going to get 2nd place. So Peter Geldnes is going to lose 2 places in 1 lap. And that's exactly what happened. So Charles Wilkin, our race 1 winner, is in 2nd place and he's got 8 laps to go. Geldnes is having a nightmare lap because he's got Warwick Stewart for company now. He's right up behind him. That's often fine. I do that myself. You make one mistake, you compound it with a few more. Very difficult to sort of just compose yourself. And then before you know it, you've dropped several places and not just the one that you deserve to. We got Stewart now looking to also put a move on Geldnes. And he's going to have the cutback, is Warwick Stewart on Peter Geldnes. And might be covering here on inside line for turn 2. Just, unfortunately for Peter Geldnes, he could find himself from 1st position all the way back into 4th shortly. No, he has managed to thwart that off. So, to remind ourselves, leader now, Jack Botha. Charles Wilkins, race 1 winner, is in 2nd position. Peter Geldnes, 3rd position. Warwick Stewart, 4th. Nell, how's Nell getting on? 2.3 seconds. Very good effort from Adrian Nell to claw back that deficit. It's just coming onto the back of the field now. Really shows the pace that he has. But yeah, he's had a lot to do and we've only got 7 laps to go. So we'll be keen to make a strong finish for those other places. We saw we got prize money down to 3rd, Flip, haven't we? So it's no point throwing it away.
Yeah, true. Just right before we start with the final laps and things start heating up for that places, I'd like just to take a moment and give a moment of silence for Peter Grobler. He lost a close family relative not so long ago, Vander Grobler. So our thoughts go out to him, and I mean, even with that, I'm very, how can I say, I've got a lot of respect for him for still being here tonight, still doing what he loves, despite what has happened. So just a moment of silence going out to him.
Yeah, and he's doing well. He's in 7th position here in race 2, and he's not far behind Nick Hodgson at all. So hopefully he is at least enjoying himself this evening. We saw quite a few battles in race 1 as well. So he had quite a good scrap in race 1, and he's doing well in race 2.
Exactly, and as the person who put this beautiful track together, you know, that's a big shout out to him as well. And I, like you just said, I hope that at the very least he enjoys himself. But I mean, he's up there. He's not really too far back, not too far in front. So, you know, he's definitely been in this race for most of it.
And we got to fight for the lead now already, because we had Charles Wilkins right up side by side with Bode. I thought the lead would swap places, but it didn't, as Wilkins went slightly deep into turn 1. Bota's holding on to it just, but they're coming up to turn 2 now, side by side. Wilkins got to go the long way round. Wilkins is not happy just to take the points here. He wants the double win. He wants to show that he earned it, and he's putting the time in. So he.
Oh, see Adrian now also, you know, clawing up. He's really close to the gap. He's in 4th place now, right behind Peter.
Yeah, real shame that Nell just got mixed up with Hodgson. Still not 100% sure what happened there. One car certainly went off the circuit, and they ended up both spinning out. Regrouping back in position. I think whoever caused the accident waited, which is what you like to see. But yeah, the amount of time lost is really compromised this race 2 for Nell. Done immensely well though to get the gap down to 1.4. We saw it as about 6 or so seconds. It shows how quick Nell is. Got that gap right back down and is in the mix. But Will Wilkins managed to pull off a double win here and be sort of provisional winner, if you like, until the race results are fully formalised. But from my standards, I think Wilkins has had a very clean evening so far. I'm not going to jinx him too much, hopefully. So,
like I was about to say, it takes one mistake for them to fall back. So let's hope that that is not what happens here.
Yeah, or one incident and a race investigation. That's certainly what we don't want to see. I always like to rather see wins done on track rather than off by the stewards. I think the stewards have actually got a quite quiet evening. They can perhaps enjoy the Dota 2 finals happening after this one, because I've not seen too many incidents.
Yeah, no, I really think they've done well tonight. Like I said, I really loved seeing the discipline, because I have seen some horrible races since being exposed to the sim racing world specifically. But what we've seen here, I think, is good sportsmanship. Respect. I think respect is a big thing here, because nobody wants to be the guy that bumped off the guy that was supposed to win. You know, then it's not just a loss, but it's a loss and a penalty.
No, and I've seen, I mean, I commentate on a lot of sim racing, mostly only higher Division 1 racing, and it's the quality this evening has been what I would come to expect of some very, very good sim racers. Yeah, so a testament to this competition, that it's brought out the best in our races here this evening. And yeah, we've seen some great driving throughout the field. But who is going to win? Jack Both has just managed to really stretch his legs at the front. I think Wilkins is not going to take too many risks. He's 0.6 back from our leader. Peter Geldnes has managed to compose himself after that sort of nightmare lap that dropped him to 3rd place. Looked like he possibly might go back to 4th, but is still just holding on to that podium place. He'd dearly like to have a podium finish in race 2, as would Warwick Stewart, I'm sure. And Adrian Nell, sorry. So Nell got past Stewart. I've got those two cars mixed up. So Nell's now looking up the inside. And very likely to get this pass made is Adrian Nell, as we'll have the inside lines to turn 2. So Peter Geldnes got a nose ahead, but it's going to drop behind, and Nell has moved up into 3rd place, but is behind Wilkins again. Same place as we saw in race 1. So it was that start, really. We're talking about it all evening, is how race 2 start with the flip grid would be fair, and Wilkins just showed his class because he gained places and Nell went backwards, and I think from that point onwards Nell just gave himself just that little bit too much to do. And yeah, Wilkins has shown that he can get through the field cleanly, and yeah, that good start at the beginning of race 2 is going to probably be enough for him to possibly get this championship. So Wilkins is just behind Bota and happy to be there with 2 laps remaining. Some honourable mentions.
Up on them as well.
Yeah, honourable mentions. We've got Nick Hodgson, 6th place. We've already spoken about Grobler, who's done very well. He's going around sort of slightly on his own in 7th. Jay de Villiers 8th. Danny Van Rooyen in 9th position. And Sarah Bosch finishes out the top 10. Had a couple of DNFs in Brett Crew Camp, unfortunately. And Melvin Goose is also disconnected or is DNF, so we've got a couple of not completed race 2. But we go back to our leaders in Jacques Bota. Now this could be interesting. We've sort of established that Wilkins possibly should be our points leader. And I'm gathering Nell will be in 2nd place, but who is in 3rd position? Because we've got Nick Hodgson back in 6th place, and Bota, I think, in 1st will probably be enough to jump him back into a prize-winning position. As it stands,
I'm interested to see what it's going to happen. Luckily, when you said earlier I have to do the points, luckily I don't have to SRA service do that by themselves.
Oh, brilliant! Okay,
so,
we can work that one out.
Yeah, I'm also keen to see those results right after this. But so I have no idea who is in that 3rd place. I was actually trying to think very hard. Now I do know that 1st and 2nd is between Arjan and Wilkin. You know, well, touch wood, hoping that nothing happens between now and the finish line.
Well, we've only got one corner until the finish line, and we got Wilkins all of a sudden all over the back of Bota. We're going to have a repeat of race 1 as these two drivers come through the final corner. I don't think Charles Wilkin is anywhere close enough to put a run up to the finish line, and it will be Jacques Bota who will win race 2, closely followed by Charles Wilkin. How close? 2 races immensely close. Adrian Nell, fantastic recovery drive to get a podium finish. Peter Geldner's 4th position, very well done to him. Held out as long as he possibly could from his great start. Warwick Stewart in 5th place. Nick Hodgson down in 6th. Would have thought maybe he'd be a bit higher. We'll have to work out, maybe find out later what happened to him. Peter Grobler did finish in 7th. He was pretty much going around in 7th the entire race. Jay de Villiers in 8th position. Danny Van Rooyen in 9th. And in 10th, finishing out the top 10, Sarah Boshoff is in 10th place. Wow, that's it. 2 races. Quick as you like, but so close. I mean, we're talking hundreds of a second in race 1, maybe even thousandths of a second, and less than a tenth in race 2, with Jacques Bota just sneaking the win. So at the moment we have a provisional congratulations, I should imagine, to Charles Wilkins. He did show his class with a 1st and 2nd place with a flip grid. But yeah, we'll wait for the final results tomorrow evening, I take it.
Yeah, the prize giving stream will be at 4 o'clock tomorrow afternoon, where we will be announcing all the winners for all the different games, and then of course Assetto Corsa as well. But like you said, we will need to look. Some things did happen there. There were 1 or 2 accidents. I didn't exactly see what happens there, but let's hopefully let's hope there's no changes to standings or penalties going out, because I didn't see anyone I think that was intentional with the mistakes made. But you know, that's pending review.
Yeah, for sure. So we'll always wait out for the results. But I think I'll be surprised if Charles Wilkins, I didn't see him involved in anything. He's very hard to be involved in anything when you lead from the front. And then race 2, he managed to scythe his way through the field quite cleanly. So congratulations to him provisionally. He did exceptionally well. And I'd just like to thank all the drivers for a very enjoyable evening. But 2 great races, great track, some great racing. And yeah, as a venue, I've been quite impressed with it. And yeah, also to our sponsors, Logitech, Evolve IT, Vander Designs. Thanks for making this possible, and it's been very enjoyable. We've got a lot to look forward to with NamLAN though. I'm the sim racing specialist, but Flip, you're the gaming specialist. So what have we got to look forward to?
So yeah, the last game that's on for NamLAN is tonight at 8 o'clock. That starts in roughly 50 minutes for those who are interested in Dota 2. And that will be the final game of NamLAN. Everything has been concluded then. And then everybody who's interested to see the placements, who wins what, all of that. And of course, NamLAN champion, everything will be announced then on tomorrow's prize giving stream. But for tonight, 8 o'clock, Dota 2 for those who are interested.
Yeah, so that's the end of our stream for Assetto Corsa, but come back to the channel shortly because you'll have Dota 2 to look forward to. Bit of a different atmosphere, I'm sure, but still just as competitive in the esports scene, yes. I'm sure. Very competitive. I know Dota 2 is insanely competitive, so that'll be a lot to look forward to this evening. But yeah, I'd just like to say thanks to everyone. Thanks, Flip, for joining me this evening. Been very enjoyable.
Oh, thank you as well, Daniel.
And for everyone else, if you want to get involved with sim racing, all you got to do is go and buy yourself a Logitech G.923, get yourself on the servers. There's plenty of events happening throughout Africa, and you too can be joining possibly NamLAN next year. And but in the meantime, there's lots of online gaming and racing to do. So get yourself some gear. Can't recommend it as a wheel. The Logitech force feedback rim is superb. I know so many, probably the majority of racers in South Africa and Namibia are using their equipment, and yeah, it really brings out the immersion factor in sim racing and the realism. And as I said, it's the one event or one esport event where the skill is transferable in real life as well. So a massive boom in popularity of sim racing this year. So at least we've had some benefit out of 2020. But yeah, get yourself involved, and I'm sure you'll enjoy it. But until the next time we meet, please drive safe and go well. We'll see you soon.